Mike McCarthy, the chairman of the Franklin County Democratic Party, and I'm here today with the inaugural episode of Franklin County Blues, the show about the Democratic Party in Franklin County. Today, for our first show, I'm joined by the candidates for the Franklin Senate District to represent Franklin County and Alburgh. I have here to my left Dustin Tanner of Fairfield, and to my right, Pam McCarthy.
Hi.
Of St. Albans, who also does happen to be my mother. We are related, so I'll put that question to rest. Starting with you, Dustin, I'd like each of you to introduce yourselves and let folks at home know why are you running for the Franklin County Senate?
Yeah, so my name is Dustin Tanner. I've been in Franklin County since I was about 4 years old. Went to preschool in St. Albans, went to middle school in Fairfield, went to high school in Enosburg. I'm running for Senate because it feels like we haven't had a voice for working class people in Franklin County and, forever, I would say. And we need somebody down in Montpelier who is willing to fight for things like a $15 minimum wage or just fight for things and to keep the working class person in mind. My mother raised me on one income while being a flagger for a construction company that unfortunately went under when the whole Fairpoint went bankrupt, and that was a big moment in my political life because I learned a lot. That's when I started to get involved, was when I was looking at how that deal was made, and that's when I got to learn how most of the meat of government was made, and also the fact that it's really easy to get involved at the local level. So I decided this year to throw my hat in the race because I want to represent every single person in Franklin County, and people who are working minimum wage jobs, who are working 40 hours a week, don't really have anybody who can stand up for them because they don't have time to advocate for themselves because they are so busy. So I'm taking time out of my life with my full-time job to run for Senate in this district.
Great. Well, thanks for being here today. And Pam, would you like to introduce yourself to folks at home?
Yes, I'm Pam McCarthy, and I'm running for the Senate in the Franklin District. And the main reason I'm running is because I really want to make sure that families' voices are represented in our community. I've had the opportunity in the time that we've lived here since 1995 to have worked at the Parent-Child Center in Alburgh as my first full-time job. Got to know the families over there. And in years after that was the Parent-Child Center director at the Family Center of Northwestern Vermont, which is now at Northwestern Counseling and Support Services at the heart of their family center. I moved from that into the Agency of Human Services field director role, where I really got to know the system from womb to tomb, if you will, cradle to kaput, as a friend of mine used to say, and really understand the needs both here in our community and throughout the state. In my current role as the President and CEO of Vermont Family Network, I'm understanding better and better the needs of families who have children with special health needs and disabilities. And I'm really committed to being able to ensure that all family voices are lifted in our community. I'm committed to seeing our waterways and our working landscapes preserved here in Franklin County. We have some tremendously wonderful resources here, both human and otherwise. I want to see us be an example for the rest of the state, and I think that I can represent us well, both as somebody who's had great leadership experience and who's been a person who has chosen to live here and feels like it's my forever home.
Great. So a big question I have as the chair of the Franklin County Democratic Party, and given the recent history where we've seen more of the legislative seats turn from blue to red across Franklin County, with right now there are 2 Democrats and 1 fusion candidate out of the 13 representatives and senators, and that may really change this fall in 2018. Maybe starting with you, Pam, what are the reasons that you consider yourself a Democrat? Why are you running as a Democrat?
I'm running as a Democrat because I really believe that the democratic values that really look at taking care of everybody, about building community, about building connection, about working across lines, and being fully inclusive of everyone's interests, really are things that I hold near and dear to my heart. I really feel that I can represent those values well, and that they represent the best of what we know here in Franklin County and Alburgh. I really think that I'm going to be able to speak to those things the way that those values speak to me.
Great. And Dustin, I remember a few years ago, Congressman Peter Welch say something like, their philosophy is, it's you're in it for yourself. You know, you're alone. And our philosophy is we're all in this together.
Absolutely.
Do you think that helps frame up what it means to be a Democrat, and what does being a Democrat mean to you?
Yeah, it does. You know, full disclosure, I am running as a fusion with the DP label, but I chose to put the Democrat first because of those values in the Democratic Party. You know, when you think of the Democratic Party, you think of the New Deal. You think of those workers' rights being the center of the workers' revolution and being connected, running together, you know, and that's why I decided to put the D first when I decided to run. And I've been a Democrat for pretty much my whole life. I am just a little more left than some Democrats in the party, and I'm willing to admit that myself. But I think the best way to run in Franklin County is to say, hey, I'm unified with everybody, right? But I'm a Democrat first in the sense of I really believe in the party's platform, and I understand that, you know, sometimes you're not going to be able to get everything you want. And that, you know, the Democrats have been really good at that in the sense of understanding, hey, how to negotiate, hey, how to do those types of things in Montpelier, while also still representing the working class man and still being champions on things like, you know, on progressive rights. I don't really see a difference between the two parties, but I think the Democratic Party is a nice, you know, I think I've worked with them longer, and I know a lot more Democrats than I do progressives, but I'm a Democrat first because I believe in that platform, that new, you know, that New Deal platform, that workers' rights push, and that's why I'm running the way I'm running.
So in this last legislative session, we saw basically the governor gave a list to the legislature of things he'd like to see, especially in terms of education spending cuts, but didn't lead and say, I want to see these things, and this is a path of how we get from here to there until the end of the session. And then at that point, it launched into a multi-week debate about whether we should take one-time revenues and use it to buy down debts that we have, or whether we should do a very short-term property tax buy down that was only going to make things worse in the next year. What do you think about I'll throw out there that it's my opinion that the Democrats, while they don't always do the easy to understand popular thing in Montpelier, that they're much more interested in governing for the long haul than the Republican leadership.
Yeah, you know, leadership is not leadership if it comes in May. It's just that simple. If you give people a list, and the session starts in January. You want to have these ideas, start this in January. Don't be absent until the last week of the session and say, hey, here's what I'm doing. You either do this or I threaten to shut down the government. Because in the long run, you know, that's not even fiscally conservative because it cost us thousands of dollars every single extra day people were down there. And even with the property tax buy down, half of Vermont was still going to see a property tax increase, along with the fact that the voters went to the polls on town meeting days and voted for these budgets. They voted for the school budgets. They knew what they were getting. And to say to the voters who care about their communities and schools, no, you don't know what you're voting for, is really just, it's just not good. It's just not good government, in my opinion. And the bickering and the back and forth was not productive in any way, shape, or form. And the fact of the matter is, you know, you break trust, you break relationships. There are a lot of good people I know from also the Republican Party that did say, okay, here's our compromise, and then to have Phil Scott still veto that was unfair to the work that everybody did. He vetoed a tripartisan budget. Like, what is that? That speaks volumes when, you know, everybody's doing all this work, and the attacks by his chief of staff on the Joint Fiscal Office as well. Those are tactics that I don't want to see in my Vermont, because that's not how our government should be ran. The idea of using that money for the one-time property tax buy down, or using the money to put in some future reserves and to use for our retirement fund, you know, using the teacher retirement fund is huge. You have to put that money in that fund because that's a long-term, you know, that's a long-term hole that you got to fill in. Yeah, the property tax buy down for a year, it looks nice, but long-term, it's just going to make us pay more. And I don't know how you can say affordability when you do the thing that long-term is going to make it harder to afford Vermont.
So it seems to me that when we talk about what makes Vermont affordable, that has been translated over the last couple of election cycles just to be about cutting budgets and tax relief, which strikes me as only really benefiting people who already have money and a big tax burden. And it doesn't seem like it is a conversation about values and what we want to invest in. And so, Pam, how do you see this conversation about whether or not we can afford a certain kind of government, and where does that sit with you and your platform?
Well, and again, when you think about being a Democrat, you think about how we take care of one another. And I think it requires a certain level of investment in what works for people and in listening to them well. You know, you can't be thinking all the time about what is the cost. You have to think about what it is we're investing in. And the fact of the matter is needs are increasing. We're seeing incredibly difficult issues, particularly in our community. When you think about opioid issues, you think about mental health concerns, all of the types of things that, again, we're trying to resource within our communities and at the state level, and to really be able to make things better. We need to be reinforcing prevention and early intervention efforts so that we're heading things off at the pass and that we're making those investments so that we don't have higher costs in the future. I think when you think about affordability, you know, the big question is affordability for whom? And what is it we're really talking about? Because we need to be thinking about our investments in the future. And to Dustin's point earlier, I would agree that it really is about the long term and how it is we're thinking about buying in now, if you will, for payoffs that will come to us in the future, that are about our families, that are about young children, that are about the elders now that are in our population that are requiring some investment as well to have a really good quality of life and be able to continue to contribute as citizens in our community and at the state level.
So beyond some of the things we've talked about now with education and healthcare, I know a lot of the conversation that's happening across Franklin County with the blue-green algae blooms and phosphorus issues that have plagued both Lake Carmi and Lake Champlain, that both of you have made a very strong commitment to making an investment in the future water quality. I think the last target that came from both the state and the EPA was about $1.2 billion over 25 years in water quality investment. And you know, that is big for a state like Vermont. Yeah. What do you say to the folks who say we've invested a lot in studies and now it's time to do something? How do you propose that we, with the resources we have, you know, take on the water quality issues that have been plaguing our county and the rest of the state?
You want to go first or you want me to go first?
You go first this time.
Well, I would say to those folks that you could either have an economy where you can use your lake for tourism, you can use your lake for, you know, property revenue, and you can use your lake for anything, or you could just not have a lake and just lose money on it every single year. The long-term benefits of cleaning our lake, Lake Champlain, you know, we're talking millions of dollars of tax money. We're talking millions of dollars of tourism here. We're talking, you can open, you know, if St. Albans Bay was clean year round, just look at what they do with the bay now. You know, you have Bay Day, you have the fireworks down there, you know, there's an opportunity to do a lot more if the water is just clean. The long-term investment, the value, you know, when you're investing, you want return on your investment, right? You look at Lake Champlain, there's a good ROI on that. Mm-hmm. There's like a really, you know, there's a good, you know, you look at property values, clean lake, everybody's gonna wanna live on the clean lake, property values are gonna go up. You know, you can have tourism down there, you can open up businesses down there, you could have a lake district, similar to how you have downtown districts. You could clean, look at what they've done in Burlington, you know, that before Bernie Sanders came in, that was just industrial land. Right? That wasn't what it was today. And now you have a beautiful waterfront, you have a museum, you have one of the nicest places in the state. And that's what I would say to those people. I would say, you want to see your tax dollars go further, you clean the lake. Lake Carmi is sadly a different story. At this point, you can't clean Lake Carmi. At this point, it's about trying to reverse the damage and hoping in 100 to 120 years that you see the results. That's going to be a lot of work, but I would still say that's an investment. You know, you could start turning the tide on that, and you could leave something to your family if you own a camp. And, you know, there used to be some shops on that Lake Carmi strip, and there aren't any because there's no reason to go up there because you can't swim in the lake. You need to be able to have a clean lake because clean state parks are a benefit to all of us. You know, you pay your state park admission fee. I was just at Killcare the other day swimming, and I want that water to be as clear as it can be because I want to go to my lake. I don't want to buy a pool. I want to go to nature. I want to swim in Lake Champlain. I want to give back to my community. So my point is, and what I will say to voters is that let's look at the return on your investment, because by cleaning Lake Champlain, that number, that $1 billion number seems big, but in the long term, you're gonna make that back. You're gonna double that. In 50 years, you'll double that. If you clean up the lake and take this seriously, you'll have your whole, your family, and you'll be able to lease over to your family, a waterfront property that is losing value every single year that you look at the Georgia Shore, Georgia tax values have gone down because of how dirty the lake has been on the shore. Clean the lake and those tax values go back up because people want to live on the lake. So it's all about return on investment.
It's very much an economic development issue, too, when you think about it. I mean, there's been a recent UVM study that was looking at water quality and saying that for every 1 meter of water clarity that was lost, that you would lose $17 million in revenue and about 200 jobs. So in a time when we're really trying to attract new families to the state, in as much as we're trying to preserve the lake and the water quality for people who already live here and want to enjoy that and have healthy waters and a really good place to recreate. We really want to be touting those qualities for other people to come here and to stay here and to grow their families here and to enter our workforce. It's really, truly an economic development issue and a quality of life issue. And I agree with you, Dustin. It took us a very long time to get here. It's going to take us time to get past this. But I believe that if we leverage the federal investment in lake cleanup and we're creative and we're thinking about sustainable solutions, we can make this happen. And I'm really disappointed that we weren't able to get farther this last legislative session, but I believe that if you and I make it to the legislature in the Senate run, that we will make a big difference in this next session in terms of really coming up with a plan and moving that plan forward for sustainability and making it possible for the average Vermonter to contribute to that effort.
It is interesting that in this legislative session, it was as if there was a focus on kind of not leading and not listening to the business community and the environmental groups. We're all saying, here are some plans. Here's an idea about meals and rooms tax. There's an idea about a hotel fee. There has long been talk about a per parcel fee. I think that the question that I have right now as somebody, especially living in St. Albans, where we're trying to tackle our MS4 permits and do what the federal government is requiring us to do in terms of water and wastewater with huge investments. If all of the municipalities have to take on that burden on their own, that's putting pressure on property taxes. That's putting pressure on the local homeowners.
Absolutely.
Right. So do you think that there's an argument to be made that we can make it more affordable to make the investments that we need to make in water quality with a broad-based solution that has money coming in from our tourism, because that seems to be cyclical, excuse me. Woo. If you invest money in water quality and that breeds more tourism, then those investments will pay for themselves.
It's a good idea, Vermonters are complaining about affordability in Vermont. A tax on, hotels, that's not hurting Vermonters who are complaining about affordability, because that's not hurting your property. That's not hurting anybody who's working. And people have claimed, well, the tourism industry will take a hit. No, it won't. The tourism industry, as long as we're getting snow, those hotels are going to be full. The bigger threat to the tourism industry is climate change, right? And I think going and saying, hey, let's take advantage as a state of this, tourism tax base and bring, use that to clean our lake, everybody will benefit. I think that's a wonderful solution. And, I think that's something that I would support because it's not a regressive tax. It doesn't hurt Vermont workers. It doesn't hurt the people who are making under a certain amount of year, because if you're working 40 hours a week, you're not renting a hotel room. And in the grand scheme of things, that drop in the bucket is huge because it can help clean the lake. And like I said earlier, the return on investment. A tax like that, you could put some hotels by the lake and then people will want to go to the lake because the lake is clean. You can develop and you can all work together and be able to keep the lake clean.
Right. Other than what we've talked about now, are there other priorities or things that you'd really like to get out to people and tell them about each of your campaigns?
I think that it's really important that we think about what's happening with education, and in particular as we're looking at changes in the funding structure that we're anticipating in the next year and the lessons learned from Act 46 consolidation, particularly in our own Maple Run School District, how that applies. And as Dustin said earlier, local communities really know what they need.
Yeah.
And I think we need to respect the local vision of what's working for students and for the schools themselves, and to think about the quality of education, not just what it's costing us to provide education, but what it is we're investing in. And that's not to say that we should be spending more and more. It's thinking about how we're spending those dollars and getting creative, again, about where consolidation can create economies of scale and can create more opportunities for all of our students, that we should be looking at those possibilities creatively. The world is changing, and there are all kinds of new ways to bring in information, to teach and to learn, and I think we need to be reinforcing entrepreneurial and creative ideas about education throughout the state. Again, back to what I was saying earlier, I think we need to listen to families about what their students need, and to students who have some exciting ideas about what really are rewarding learning opportunities. The personalized learning plans that came into place a few years ago, I don't think we've advanced the possibilities of that as much as we could yet, and I think there are some really exciting things that can happen going forward. But we really need to be paying attention, and again, it's everybody's investment in terms of what we put into our students and how our students become contributing citizens in our community going forward.
Yeah, I want to echo what Pam said about education. So, and I guess somebody who works in the school full time, you understand when you hear Phil Scott talk about the 5-to-1 ratio of staff members. I work in a school that falls under that, and let me tell you, our school, our students we give them a great education, but sometimes it feels like people are falling behind. And it's really easy to look at the numbers on paper, but every number on paper is a human being. You can't just look at the numbers on paper and just make a generalization of, this staff member this staff member makes a little too much, we got to cut them, because that staff member could be the difference between a student succeeding and failing. I would know. I was in a lot of the special education growing up. I had a processing delay, I had a speech impediment, I had to go through that system, and it was the teachers that were there for me that would have been that extra teacher who helped me that 1 or 2 times that kept me going, got me through school. And it was a personalized learning plan my senior year in high school. I had a music teacher who let me start a podcast because he knew I wasn't great at music. I had a digital arts teacher that let me do my own type of education system that helped me learn, because every student learns differently. So we have to do what we can do to help those students become successful adults. As far as things that my campaign is focusing on, I want to encourage people to look past the talking points. I think there's a lot of talking points that get thrown at you by candidates during an election cycle, and I want to encourage people to look at their record in Montpelier, look at who they're working for, look at who is funding them. And I'm somebody who, I'm not taking any type of bankroll money. I'm not taking any special interest money. I am, I'm working for the people who are out on the streets working, the cashier, the teacher, the bank teller. I'm working for those people who aren't making $100,000 a year. And that's what this campaign is about. It's about raising wages. It's about providing paid family medical leave. It's about providing opportunity to every single Franklin County resident. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to put talking points in front of you. I'm going to say, yeah, stuff sometimes costs money. But in the long term, I want to return the investment to the entire county, because we can all make our county better together. Franklin County is a wonderful place to live. I absolutely love it here. I'm a 24-year-old who decided to stay in an era where, every couple of weeks you hear more Vermonters are leaving, more Vermonters are leaving. I want to stay here. I want to work to make this better, and we do this together, and we do this as a team, and we do this realizing that sometimes hard decisions got to be made, but I'm not going to feed you talking points. I'm going to give you results.
I really like the touch that you had on where money comes from and the campaign finance. When you looked at the 2016 election, us Democrats in Franklin County were far outspent by our Republican counterparts. What are your philosophies, Pam, about where money comes from, and what do you see happening in terms of the people that are supporting you and how this campaign's going to go forward as we get from the Tuesday, August 14th primary, which I encourage all of you to vote. These two candidates are running unopposed, as there are two seats on the Democratic ticket, but there are contests for Congress, for the gubernatorial race on the
probate
Democratic
judge
side.
is the big contest.
Yes,
And
that
probate
is a big
judge. Probate judge is the big one this year on the Democratic side. So where do you see the flavor of this year, and what are the big themes that you'd like to address over the next 3 months?
Wow, that's a big question. So I think in the next 3 months, I really want to make sure that people know that I'm interested in serving. I'm interested in hearing what it is that's important to our constituents and to our state, and to be able to incorporate that into my own thinking and to be able to represent that voice clearly. I think when you talk about financing, so far, most of my contributions have come from individuals, from $20 up to $250, $350, and those are small investments, but they are people saying to me, I feel like you can represent my voice and my perspective, and I'm invested in you doing that. I want to win the trust of the voters here in our community. I'm not so interested in the larger corporate kinds of contributions or PACs. I think, again, I want to be able to be there to be a voice for Franklin County and for Alberg, and to be thinking about how one best represents that without being beholden to big interests that may not necessarily reflect what it is our constituents want and need. We're really here to think about individuals and children and families who live here, whether they've been lifelong residents or whether they're people like me who chose to move here and have put down roots and intend to stay. We want to make the best of that, and I'm really hopeful that there will be significant investment from a grassroots level that will allow me to be competitive with our GOP friends.
So that leads me to think, as we kind of wind down in the last few minutes of the show, what are the things about you, each separate from the politics of the day and the issues that you're running on in your party or your platform, what are the things about your personal background, and where did you sort of get your values? If you were going to take a minute or two to introduce yourself to the voter, to say who you are rather than just what you are as a candidate and why you're doing what you're doing, I want to give each of you a minute to kind of give the personal reason why you're doing this as opposed to the political one.
So I was an Air Force brat, if you will, and I was a person who moved all over the place with my family. And that integral family values and knowing what's most important to you in terms of connection and community always meant a great deal to me. I think that's at the heart of what I represent. I think that being able to express those values of family, of resilience, of vision for the future, of leadership, those kinds of things that I really want to be able to put forward in service to my community are very much there. We brought our family here, yourself included, when you were young, and have seen some remarkable times in this state. As I said, I've never felt more at home than I have here in Vermont, and I really want to be able to make sure that other people can have as good a life as I and my family have had here.
Great. You, Dustin?
I am a working class person in Franklin County. I own 2 dress shirts, this one and a blue one. I have come from a level of income where, my mother making $17,000 a year was a good year in the house. I have grown up on food stamps. I've grown up on assistance. I understand why government needs to be there, and I am running for office because I want to give everybody a fair chance. I want to work for the workers. I want to work for everybody. I want, and for me, this election is about giving power back to the people.
Absolutely.
At the national level, we've seen dark money running politics. It costs thousands of dollars to get access to your senator, to your congressman. And I'm starting to see some of that seep into Vermont a little bit. And I want to turn that back around. You know how much it costs to access me? This much. You can call me anytime and I will listen to you, because that's who I want to be. I want to give power back to the people because I'm just a normal, I'm a regular dude. Like, I love NASCAR. I love sports. I coach sports, I am not a politician. I'm running for office because somebody needs to represent the people of Franklin County who is like the people of Franklin County. I come from a farming family. I have a background, working at convenience stores around here in the service industry, and I've come from pretty much nothing, and I'm self-made in the sense of I'm pushing for that, and that's why I'm running for office.
Well, thank you, both of you. That is all the time that we have today. I want to thank everybody at home for watching the inaugural episode of Franklin County Blues. I'm Mike McCarthy, the chair of the Franklin County Democratic Party. Thanks very much for watching our conversation with Senate candidates Dustin Tanner and Pam McCarthy. Have a great day.